to Syria on the programme, where clashes have broken out in the northern city of Aleppo between Syrian government forces and Kurdish fighters. Several people, civilians and soldiers, are reported to have been killed. Now, at the heart of the dispute is a reluctance by an American-backed Kurdish group called the SDF to give up its hard-won autonomy to the new Syrian authorities in Damascus. The government then would like to merge those Kurdish fighters with the national army. Well, let's talk about this with Wassim Nasr, who has travelled to Syria several times, something of an expert on the country. Wassim, your thoughts then on what we're seeing in Aleppo?
Well, actually, those clashes in Aleppo are becoming very periodic. And from time to time, each 2 weeks, you have clashes. When I was there in December, we also witnessed small clashes, sniper attacks from the areas controlled by the Kurdish forces towards the areas controlled by the government. And when you go down from the border, meaning from Azaz to Aleppo, you go next to those neighborhoods. And actually, it's a front line, you know, it's on and off. A front line, and we have to remember to make a little bit of context that the neighborhood of Ashrafiyye was held, of Sheikh Maqsoud in particular, was held by Kurdish factions, meaning the YPG, which belonged to the Syrian Democratic Forces, even while Assad was in power.
Yeah.
And actually, when Aleppo was lost by Assad, those YPG forces enhanced the territory they controlled to neighboring neighborhoods, meaning Ashrafiyye, Bani Zaid, and other areas, and then they retracted back to some of the areas. So meaning those neighborhoods aren't solely Kurdish, actually. They are Arab and Kurdish. And there were many agreements, local agreements in the area in order to coordinate this situation to avoid a huge clash, actually. You know, when I was there, I met people in charge of security in Aleppo, and they told me that Siban Hamo, which is a leader in the YPG, that they reached an agreement with him in order to make like mixed checkpoints, meaning on the checkpoints to enter the neighborhood, you have the Syrian army or security forces and YPG forces. And actually on and off it was working, and at some point in time you had mixed checkpoints, but behind the mixed checkpoint you had a sole YPG checkpoint, you see. So it was really always like very harsh agreements. And as you said in your introduction, of course there's the deal of the 9th of March in order to merge the Syrian Democratic Forces in the Syrian army, but actually the situation at Aleppo is very particular. Because even though the Syrian Democratic Forces have the U.S. backing in the northeast, the situation as Aleppo is still very different, you know. And this is maybe why the Syrian government today decided to go full-blown on a military operation. We're going to see footage, for example, of tanks which are entering the neighborhood of Bani Zaid, Syrian army tanks and troops. And as you see on those tanks, they are equipped with anti-drones, anti-mini drone equipment, meaning that they decided to go full-blown militarily into those neighborhoods after checking out the civilians, after giving two safe ways out for civilians, and they seem to be convinced that this operation won't jeopardize the agreements of the 10th of March with the Syrian Democratic Forces as a whole, and Mazloum Abdi heading those forces.
Look, let's talk about another piece of the complex puzzle that is Syria today, and that's Israel. Because actually here in Paris this week there was a meeting between Syrian officials, Israeli officials. It's important to emphasize these are rare talks, this is unusual, and it does suggest a sort of reorganization potentially of alliances in the Middle East. What do you think about what we were seeing here in Paris?
As you said, it is rare, but it occurred before.
Yeah.
This is the first time you have the Israeli government communicating about it in a positive way. And this round of negotiations occurred, as you said, in Paris. And we had a new team of Israeli negotiators which are more keen to open serious negotiation with the new Syrian government, knowing that the new Syrian government made a lots of steps towards the Jewish community, either Syrian Jewish community in the US or other places, and towards Israel too, without going into details. But those attempts were faced by full-blown military operation by the Israeli army on Syrian soil. And at the same time, as we see here on the pictures, we had a meeting between the Syrian Minister of Foreign Affairs and the French Minister of Foreign Affairs, with the real good outcome of negotiations regarding the Syrian Democratic Forces that we're talking about and the northeast part of Syria, but also regarding an economic contribution by France and Saudi Arabia in order to inject some money in the Syrian economy, knowing that the sanctions were just lifted by the American administration. So, to say that inside the Syrian Democratic Forces, the hardcore YPG or PKK elements have an interest in making those negotiations fail. And as they see diplomatic achievements in Paris, either with Israel or with France, so maybe parts of them, the hardcore part of them, is trying to make those diplomatic advances fail, which explains why fighting broke up yesterday in the city of Aleppo. One more time, which is a very particular, exceptional situation for the YPG in town, different from all other parts of Syria where Syrian Democratic Forces are holding territory in the northeast.